Right away, precarious calm now reigns in Kambe in the Ndonga Mantung division of the Northwest region. Following a bloody Youth Day celebration there, several school children were severely injured after the explosion of an explosive at the ceremonial ground. Latest information says one of the students has already died, unfortunately, and many others had their legs completely shattered. We take you back to Nkambe one day after that unfortunate incident in this edition of the news. And over to Boya in the Southwest region and other parts of South region, Youth Day activities were timid and characterized by empty streets. In sports, host country Cote d'Ivoire finally emerges winner of the 2023 AFCON competition. The Elephants beat the Super Eagles of Nigeria at the Alassane Dramane Ouattara Stadium in Ebimpe yesterday. We come back to the ecstasy of the Ivorians in the streets of Abidjan after their win in this news edition. Viewers, those are our major stories. Welcome back, viewers. Thank you so much for the confidence. We begin with this edition of the news in Yaoundé. Widespread indignation after a video of a man carrying his unattended injured daughter went viral on social media recently. The man in the video decried the fact that there is no health personnel to attend to his daughter who was in a critical condition. Human rights activists condemned the indifferent attitude of some health personnel while calling on concerned authorities to take concrete actions to such situations so that they do not repeat themselves. Immaculate Fogwe with the details.
A close to 4 minutes amateur video showing a man carrying a severely injured daughter at the entrance of the Yaoundé Gyneco Obstetric and Pediatric Hospital. The father of the child is lamenting over the fact that there is no health personnel to attend to his daughter who is in a critical condition. All efforts made by the doctor on duty to get in contact with the surgeon seems futile. Seeing the rate at which the child was bleeding, the angry father, who is scared of losing her, threatens the medical staff while warning those around of what awaits them if anything happens to his daughter. In the boot of the vehicle is the corpse of the wife. The wife and his daughter were involved in a fatal road accident. This is just one of the too many cases of negligence reported in civil hospitals across Cameroon. Human rights activists condemn such acts while clearly stating that life is sacred.
We think it's important for each and any hospital in Cameroon and beyond now to make provision for special emergency kits. Special emergency kits are those who are there to take care of emergency situations before even getting to know who is with those victims in that order, so that life is saved. Most importantly, life is saved, and then the rest can be handled in that other documentation and whatever. The life definitely must have been saved in that given circumstance. We are craving and calling the indulgence of the authorities of institutions of this nature to ensure that these safeguards are put in place and to check against the isms and the vices that have bedeviled.
Reacting to the incident, the Minister of Public Health, Dr. Manauda Malachi, denounces the act while promising to sanction all those involved. He further says the child is receiving medical attention at the Yaoundé General Hospital.
And now we come to one of our major lead stories. The town of Kambe in the Northwest region is yet to regain its normal steam after the explosion that left one person dead and several others injured. Some of them had their legs completely amputated or shattered, while religious authorities say God should pardon the people for anything they might have done, letting the door open for the perpetrators. Traditional authorities on their part and mothers engaged in rituals, a disturbing atmosphere that explains the complex nature of the armed conflict in the two English-speaking regions of the country. For me, I'm Strong Sander.
Barefooted and lamenting, the old mothers marched from the four corners of the town of Kambe to the scene of the incident. Lamenting in incantations, the old mothers denounced perpetrators of the explosion that left one person dead and over 40 others injured on February 11, 2024 in Cambe.
You women will carry picking them, they kill them, they kill them. You can't spoil people their life for years.
In another scene, close to the explosion scene, an ecumenical service is organized.
To the west, to the north, to the south, to the east, we release the angels of God. We release the angels of God. We release the angels of God.
Grouping Christian faithfuls of different denominations, Muslim faithfuls and traditionalists, the people of Cambe called on God to intervene and arrest the situation.
That which will be in accordance to your will.
Lives of innocent people are taken, their bodies deformed, and the kind of destruction that was encountered yesterday, registered yesterday. Well, our God is a God of compassion, and when things like this happen, he needs his voice to be heard.
The day ended at the courtyard of the Cambe Phone's Palace with galvanizing messages from the elite, notably from Honorable Tanfo Mingala Gerard, as well as His Royal Majesty, the Fawn of Cambe, to the local population.
And from Cambe, we take you to Boya in the southwest region, where on the 11th of February, that was yesterday, most of the streets in Boya were somehow deserted. And despite the lockdown, some people actually made it at the Bongo Square ceremonial ground for the march past. Lucy Liengu Asia now takes us to Boya and Tombe, localities in the southwest region.
As of Sunday, February 11, 2024, neighborhoods and streets in Boya like Munya, Mai 17, UB Junction, and Bonduma were deserted, with business activities grounded. This is the effect of the 7 years armed conflict plaguing the two English-speaking regions. Students in Boya had to brave the odds amidst a tight security. The governor of the Southwest region, Bernard Okala Bilai, presiding the march past at the Bongo Square ceremonial ground, we echo the message of the president's traditional speech urging the youth to engage in entrepreneurship so as to attain development.
The youth are preparing many products, but so they need our support. They need the support of the parents, the elder, the political leaders.
Training centers in Boya paraded through the ceremonial ground for the 58th edition of the National Youth Day in various traditional attires. Over to Tombel, a locality which has also been hit by the 7 years armed conflict in the southwest region, pupils and students marched past the Tombel ceremonial ground with authorities ensuring a heightened security. Though the answered present, the young people expressed worries on various issues such as unemployment, which leads to delinquency and drug consumption.
Since these youths are lacking employment, and they are more idle, they find themselves into drug consumption.
The 58th edition of the National Youth Day in Tombel was presided over by the divisional officer Leona Niam and other authorities.
They have increased tremendously. That's just a testimony of the fact that the population has realized the value of peace, the value of patriotism.
The national ritual was marked by parades, dancing, singing by pupils and students and schools in Tombel.
And now from Boya and Tombe will take you down to Limbe, still in the faculty division of the southwest region, where the march past of the 11th of February went under hitch-free, though under very tight security, as our Limbe-based correspondent Davidson Maimo tells us in the report, which comes up next.
The number of schools, pupils, students and youth in general who turned out to celebrate the 2024 National Youth Day in Limbe 2 subdivision has been record-breaking since the subdivision was created in 2007. The divisional officer, Serge Michael Abel, says, despite the threat from Anglophone separatists, the people have decided to shun away fear.
We will be coming back to that report in our subsequent news editions, and we sincerely apologize for that technical hitch there. On to something else. Security operations target illegal activities in Douala's coastal region. At least 78 individuals of both Cameroonian and Nigerian nationality have been apprehended by gendarme officers during an operation in the Douala 6th subdivision, precisely Cape Cameroon. This is because the arrest had no identification document. Details with Mala Glory.
In the early hours, a significant security operation called Operation Tentacule was launched from Naval Base to Manoka in the Douala 6th municipality, spearheaded by Colonel Pierre-Aimé Bikele, commander of the littoral region. The operation involved collaboration between the Gendarmerie Company of the Douala Seaport and the Rapid Intervention Battalion under Lieutenant Colonel Christelle Flore. The primary objective, as emphasized by Colonel Bikele, was to ensure peace and security in the region. To save a life while on operation is a general rule which you already know, so I trust you for the task you are expected to execute on the field. However, the nature of the operation took a more targeted approach, focusing on apprehending individuals lacking proper identification documents and those in possession of items with dubious origins. Led by Deputy Commander Colonel Abba, a such operation resulted in the arrest of at least 78 individuals and the seizure of various suspicious items.
We have at least 78 persons who were arrested because of lack of ID cards that engine used on the sea. We seized 7 of those engines used on the sea without any papers.
The mission was extended to Cape Cameroon, an area known for its mixed population of Cameroonians and Nigerians, as well as its reputation for harboring individuals with evil intentions, including piracy. The success of the mission, as acknowledged by gendarmerie officers, highlights the necessity of such operations to maintain regional security.
And now we talk sports. The Elephants of Cote d'Ivoire have clinched their third continental title, beating the Super Eagles of Nigeria by 2-1 at the 34th edition of the African Nations Cup. The coaches and players say their victory was because of teamwork. Morocco will be the host of the next edition of the AFCON bid for 2025. Our special envoy in Cote d'Ivoire, Samandi Kangibril, captured the reactions of the coach and players of Cote d'Ivoire and put together this report for the news.
Stadium that pushed the host nation Cote d'Ivoire to glory as they picked up their third continental title. Goals from Frank Kessié and Sébastien Halle, alongside the goal from William Trust Ekong, helped Cote d'Ivoire to defeat Nigeria in the grand finale of the 34th edition of the African Nations Cup. The coach of the Elephants of Cote d'Ivoire said they made use of the fatigue they noticed on the players of Nigeria. Today, we had a very great game from start to finish. At the break, I told the players to continue mounting pressure, noticing the fatigue on the players of Nigeria who were already on their 7th game. I told my boys not to play around, but make good use of the ball, and their opponents will open up spaces they could easily exploit. According to one of the most experienced players within Cote d'Ivoire, who was picking up his second AFCON trophy, the team spirit and determination gave them the trophy. We knew that we had the strength, and when we want to use it, everyone needs to be involved, and the supporters also help us. I'm 2 times African champion, and I will thank God, thank those who supported us. We hope that the team will go and perform well in 2025. Another old guard that was part of the tournament says he's delighted with the win, as they gave joy to the young players who were having the first experience. We are happy that we've given joy joy to the young ones discovering the tournament. It makes me to recall 2015. We were not the best team in every aspect, but we are in a team. With one spirit, we could get the results no matter the situation. Before the ceremony to hand over the trophy, the president of Côte d'Ivoire, Alassane Dramane Ouattara, celebrated with his boys who hosted and kept the trophy.
Congratulations once again to the elephants of Côte d'Ivoire. And the affluence on the roads to the Bimpe Stadium increased on the day of the final match, causing movements to be very difficult. Many vehicle owners spent hours for a ride of about 90 minutes just to get to the final. Special envoy to Côte d'Ivoire once again, Smart Dikan Gabriel, comes back to the hurdles faced by those who were bent on watching the final match at the Bimpe Stadium in Abidjan.
Getting to the Bimpe Stadium this Sunday for the final game of the AFCON was a Herculean task for most of the spectators who had to trek for more than 5 kilometers to the stadium. For those who were on vehicles, the situation wasn't different as a result of traffic, notwithstanding the fact that a section of the road was reserved for vehicles with authorization. It was a very difficult day for security forces who had to control circulation on this final day because even vehicles without authorization, in trying to escape from the traffic, joined those on the reserved lane, making it difficult for circulation. A distance that could take 90 minutes on a normal day was more than 2 hours this Sunday, forcing many people to park their cars and move on foot. Along the road, if the sale of gadgets for the whole nation was very visible, just few hawkers could take the courage to sell items of Nigeria. At the entrance of the Bimpe Stadium, several fans also had difficulties in gaining access because of the massive turnout that was recorded.
And that does it for the first part of the news. Thank you, viewers, for watching. Talking Points comes up next. Welcome back, viewers, on Talking Point tonight. We are coming back to what happened in Cambe in the Ndonga Mantung division of the Northwest region that was on the 11th of February. We saw very traumatic pictures with so many people injured. Some of them had their legs amputated and cut off. And our guest tonight is Mr. Sama Mungwa. He is of the civil society. Mr. Sama, thank you so much once again for accepting to be our guest on Talking Point. Now, we know how the terrain, so to speak, is slippery in the Northwest and the Southwest regions, especially in the Northwest region. On the 11th of February, we noticed that parents, some of them had the courage to send their children to the ceremonial ground to go and take part in the march past. Why should a parent be able to summon the courage to, let me just say, defy the orders of separatist fighters for his or her child to take part in the 11th of February?
Have that Republican duty to respect the institutions of the state and the instructions that accompany the institutions of the state. Celebration and then commemoration of Youth Day and other National Day activities is a Republican responsibility. But again, we should also understand that these parents are caught between two devils. And so the parents as well as the children are just victims in the hands of two devilish enemies. The administration on the one hand, which would want to victimize school authorities, parents and children who defy instructions, and on the other hand you find separatists who want to use the children and any opportunity given to them to set an example and to serve as a deterrent for those who would want to defy their orders and their injunctions. But within within that gap of two rivals on, should I say, either side, you also have politicians and administrators who would want to use every one of such opportunities to make a name for themselves. It is not news, it is not new either, that Nkambe has been celebrated and hailed on the news as the bastion of isolated peace in the entire Northwest region. Politicians, a particular politician in that community has made a name for himself as the highest achiever who has been able to single-handedly, I use that phrase with some intention. Single-handedly, as it is claimed, fought away separatist activities, and so seemingly the glory has been his and his alone. And for such a reason, he would go extra miles, even if it means giving people money, asking people, placating them, paying for transport, logistics, and spending huge sums of money to ensure that such events continue to hold hitch-free in his backyard, so that it continues to also send signals to headquarters that he is doing a good job on the ground. That also goes not only for him as a politician, but for administrative forces who would also see it as an opportunity for them to be promoted and rewarded accordingly for doing a good job for the system. But again, should we blame parents who want to do that which is right? Celebrating and commemorating Republican days and events like this are just what you would expect that every sensible parent should do. But again, with the risks involved.
Now, Mr. Sama, coming back to what you just said, yes, it is a Republican duty to participate, for youth to participate in Youth Day celebrations. But when the risks are so high, is it really worth it?
Difficult days of 2018, 19, 20, and 21 are behind us. That there is some semblance of normalcy in some parts of the Northwest and the Southwest. We must be honest to admit that there are some localities where there is an appreciable level of normalcy. Boya and Limbe and even parts of Bamenda being examples. But I think that administratively it is also not acceptable for us for the politicians and the administrators, I must say, to submit to the whims and the caprices of the separatists, because that would amount to an acknowledgement of defeat and the disastrous crumbling of the authority of the state. And so that is why you still find that even in some administrative units in the Northwest and the Southwest, where there is no semblance of public service responsibilities being administered, where you can only find a gendarmerie post and its officers, a police post and its officers, and the DO and his assistant, where there is no other civil servants in sight, you will still find that the administration cannot transfer away out of those areas civil servants who virtually are not doing any work and who are not even existent anywhere around there, because that would amount to acknowledging defeat and submitting to the authority of the separatists. As I told Armstrong, there will be many more Guzans in future. There will be many more Egbekos in the future. There will be many more Nkambes in the future, as long as we refuse to do the needful and we continue to play the politics of the ostrich, which is the politics of denial.
Thank you, Mr. Mungwa, for that clarification. But now, let me ask my question. In other words, why do the authorities most times make their authorities in the northwest and the southwest most times make their hierarchy maybe in Yaoundé to understand that the situation is under control, like everything is almost normal in the northwest and the southwest regions?
I think that either by virtue of its central location, its geographical location, or by the sheer resolve of the people of Nkambe to stay aloof and distance themselves from what has been happening in the larger part of the northwest and the southwest, we should be honest to accept and admit the fact that Nkambe has not known the sorrows that have befallen other parts of the northwest and the southwest. As we speak, I wonder whether any form of celebration took place in Batibo subdivision, in Njikwa subdivision, in Widikum subdivision, in Gi subdivision, in Jakiri, where we saw the grandstand being set on fire on the day of the event itself, in Ako, in Furawa, in Bingui itself. I wonder whether there was any celebration in most of the other administrative units in the northwest and the southwest. But again, you wouldn't fault the people of Nkambe who have stood their grounds, who have actually been able to withstand threats and intimidations and have carried on with their normal life. It is worth commending, but again, I think for those who fight so hard to ensure that celebrations take place, either because they want to uphold the values and the principles and the virtues of the state, or because they are politicians and administrators who stand to gain through appointments and contracts and promotions, I think the needful that they have to do is to ensure that there is maximum, I should say maximum security to protect the innocent civilians who are used as bits on either side, who are mostly the casualties, because by the time those explosives take place, I should say more often than not, the administrators and the politicians are not the primary victims and casualties. The casualties are always the ordinary civilians who have little or no form of security and should I say protection. And so I think, like it is the case now in most places where celebrations and those commemorative activities are done low-key, we could keep out the vulnerable civilian population, keep them out, and let the military and, should I say, mature parents who actually have stakes in celebrating these events be the main persons at the stage. There is no reason why we would want to give a semblance at all costs. It's like we are saying that celebrations are too pre. Are too pre at the expense of who? Over 50 casualties, mostly school children, some of whom who have their limbs amputated, whose limbs were already, blown off. We hear officially that one is already there. And so with so many casualties, at whose expense, at whose cost, who pays the price? The vulnerable civilians. So what I think is that our administrators and politicians alike should admit and accept the fact that we are in a war zone and we cannot continue to use vulnerable and innocent civilians, armless civilians, to propagate our gains, to propagate a cause for which they stand to gain little or nothing.
Now, Mr. Sama, my last question before I take leave of you, we always talk about maximum security, but there's very little or no security that way, because we see on the ground that there are always attacks and explosions and people are injured, some people even die. Now, is there any alternative way of celebrating national days in the war-torn northwest and southwest regions?
Symbolic commemorative activities at the esplanades of administrative offices rather than us actually pull out a crowd when we know that we cannot afford them maximum security. And permit me remind you that when it happened in Egbeko on the 6th of November 2023, I told your colleague Armstrong on his Saturday Pidgin News that we should be ready for more Egbekos. When it happened in my own area, Guzan, when 2 young men were shot in cold blood, I told him that we should be ready for more Guzans. When it happened in Munya on the 8th of September 2023, on the heels of school resumption, when the separatists imposed a lockdown for 3 weeks and said there should be no school resumption. It happened in Munya where persons were burnt inside their cars. I told Armstrong that we should be ready for more Munyas, and it is just a fulfillment of this prophetic sayings which I made. And again, look at the way we saw on social media videos of how the police companion and the driver of the Geo of Bamenda 2, how they were shot in cold blood. It is just a continuation of what I had seen. And again, as long as we continue to harp on this melody of normalcy and normalcy and normalcy, it is further emboldening the separatists to prove a point to that. As you claim that normalcy is returning or has returned, we would also target you sporadically to prove a point that we are still on top of the game. So, to me, the cry or the song, the victory song of normalcy that administrators and politicians harp on so happily as a victory song should no longer be the case, especially when we know that when the terrorists come, when the separatists come to attack, the innocent civilians are the victims and the casualties.
Hope you're not a prophet of doom, Mr. Sama. All we want is for this bloodshed in the northwest and the southwest regions to definitely come to an end. Thank you so much for accepting to be our guest on Talking Point. And viewers, thank you so much for being with us. Don't go away. Our programs continue on Equinoxe Television. Bye-bye for now, and see you again tomorrow, God willing.